Looks like we're live. All right. So, this is another live session. Make sure everything's working. I try to test everything in advance, and then I find it doesn't always matter. Today I had to restart twice and all this stuff. I say 2 p.m. on Tuesdays, and I also notice that people show up late, and I sort of show up late myself sometimes, but I'm here, and that's what's good. And I see people are starting to join, and thank you guys for joining. So my plan, and we'll see how quickly we get into it. My plan here is to go over the poker pitch mechanics video while people are saying hey and all that stuff, and we're gonna have some fun with that. Let's see, which side is this on? It's over here. Looks like this light's a little bit too bright. Yeah. All right. Ooh, maybe I can move this so I get a little more space on it too. Chad's here. Hey, what's going on? Appreciated you reaching out with the poker table company in Pennsylvania. That was pretty cool. You know, I looked at it a bit. Chad is aware that I've been searching for the right products for poker, and he's aware that I would love in the $400 to $500 range there to be a reasonably nice poker table that can be used to play on, that has a dealer tray in it and folding legs. And I haven't been able to find anything like that. Like this table that I got, I found it once and I've never seen it again. This one was great. It was under 200, and if they were selling these regularly, I would just recommend them to people, but it's not the world we live in. So thank you for that, Chad. I have yet to reach out to them. Got a few things on my to-do related to that. But yeah, so all right, what I'm gonna do, just to sort of get started right away, because why not, is I'm gonna get myself all set up to actually do this video that we're talking about. So, and if people start saying hey and asking questions and all that stuff, we'll do that instead, no problem. But there we go. Let me see how it shows up when I open this. Live streaming, Chrome, YouTube, little Pixie. That looks good. All right, so pitch mechanics. You can sort of see what I'm doing here, and I get the video, and let's see if I got it cropped properly still. Yeah, it's pretty good. And just like everybody, I don't have YouTube Red yet.
Why is there so much
man, they're showing me two ads.
Silence our voices.
Why?
And the answer is
no problem. All right.
off the deck.
So, I started toward the end of this one. Greg is here again. Awesome. Good to see you. And I'm just going to rearrange my windows a bit so I can see everything properly. Greg, always happy to have you here. Let's see. There it is. All right. So here we go. All right. So I'm gonna sort of dive right in. As always, interrupt me with whatever questions you have about whatever you want to talk about. I'm not worried about keeping it just focused to this particular video. I'm doing this because I think this is a fun thing to kind of go back and look at this stuff again. Oh, I'm gonna click the like button on it. I felt like doing that. I guess I never did that. So here we go. We're going to watch the beginning of this, and Greg says, good to see you too. Always happy to be here. So the pitch mechanics, one video I put this out February 18th, 2012.
Hi, my name is Marc and welcome to TruePokerDealer.com. In this video, I'll be teaching the mechanics of the pitch. And then in a follow-up video, we have the situations of the pitch. I recommend you watch this one first. Before you really watch this video, mentally prepare. It's extremely important to learn the pitch correctly. There are a lot of people that deal poker that they didn't learn it correctly the first time, and it's just so much work once you train your body to do something to unlearn it. Some benefits you get from learning it.
I need to re-emphasize that for a second here. When you learn something, and I'm going to say in an unhealthy way, meaning if you do it over and over again, it's bad for your body. When you learn something like that and then you start to rely on it in order to keep your speed up for the job, it is such a pain in the behind in order to fix that problem. And I know dealers that have dealt with back problems, wrist problems. Like, if you deal and you don't have good mechanics in form, where you're like back here and pitching and you're like going like this all the time, doing this hundreds of times a day at your job, like, you can very easily develop wrist problems. You can get a little I forget what it's called, like a little cyst in your wrist or something like that. These things can be very, very frustrating, because then you have to retrain yourself on the job, and it's just like, our brains aren't wired that way. So learning to do this correctly the first time is really valuable. Greg said, on last week's stream, I asked about dealing with chips behind. Would you mind showing us what that looks like in real time? Yeah, I can do that. Carpal tunnel is a thing. Hang on, let me find the name of this, actually. It's called a ganglion cyst. And it can show up in your wrist like this. I know, I know somebody that got it playing baseball, but I also know 2 dealers who have gotten that from, and I'm going to say from dealing. I don't know that it's exactly that, but they're non-cancerous lumps. So it's not cancerous, but they develop along the tendons or joints, and they basically fill with fluid from the repetition, and they become painful, and you got to get them drained and stuff. This is out of hundreds and hundreds and probably thousands of dealers. Like, I only know two or three people, if I'm thinking about it, that have gotten this. But nonetheless, like, these are people that dealt like this. That's part of my point, right? If you learn to pitch properly, this motion doesn't happen, so you don't have that type of problem. Ganglion is Ganglion. Carpal tunnel can happen too, and if you've got those types of vulnerabilities, learning to pitch properly is even more important for sure. So, but to answer your question and to sort of do this demo now, I do want to be clear. Greg is somebody that he has been in the membership group for a while at the All Texas Hold'em Levels level, and I super appreciate that, Greg, just like always. And one of the things that I'm more than happy to do if you're in that level is, if you come to my live stream and you want a demo for something, you're going to get that demo. So I am going to take a moment to interrupt the going over the pitch video in order to do this for Greg and for anyone else that wants to see. The question is, and I sort of answered you via, I forget if it was a comment or an email. It must have been a comment on YouTube. But here, let's go. So I'm going to do a demo for what to do when a player comes with chips behind, and how to sort of keep track of this. So let's put some chip stacks out here. You can now see the limitations of my setup, right? My arm is reaching outside. It should be able to keep going, but if I were to extend it too far to the side, I would be busted for not having a green screen far enough. But, all right, I'm giving everybody chips here, and we'll give out some greens just to make it a little simpler. And we'll say that we're playing, we'll say we're playing 2-5. Why not? And I'm going to sort of take it to the extreme and also explain an example where this could come up. You said it was a comment on last week's video. That's right. So we'll go like this. Give some of these green chips out. I personally like a 2-5 game with more red than this, but, to each their own. And let's pretend that these black chips aren't here also. You would never pick them up like this, but these are not real in this moment, so I'm doing that. Okay, so here we go. So first, you get a player that busts out, and can we see all these spots here? Yeah, sort of. How do I want to do this? I'm going to sort of put myself right here. Might be a little weird, but it's fine. Alright. So, here I am as the dealer, and, oh no, I need to show the bank. Let me figure this out a little bit more. Oops. That's good for now. Okay, we can work with this. So, as you can see in my bank, I don't have I don't have any chips at all, basically. I'm down to barely anything left, and I need to get a fill. So let's say someone busts out this seat right here. They bust out, they lose to this player over here, and they want to buy in. So this player is going to throw their money out here, and they say they want to buy in. Now, I can't do the buy-in. So in our room, let's say we have a supervisor or a chip runner or something like that that's able to get the buy-in. So, right, I'm waiting for a fill, exactly. And we'll even put our little spacers here and pretend like these are lammers with numbers on them instead of reserve buttons and misblind buttons, right? But I would say buy-in table 3, and while that's happening, the first thing I do is I verify with the player how much the buy-in is for. And I do need to verify it, but the way that I verify it is not to actually count the money. I mean, at the end of the day, they're going to be responsible for the amount that they declare that they're playing. So basically, we just need them to say how much it's going to be for, and you do want them to put the money out. My personal opinion, let me put it this way. My personal opinion is you don't need to count the money. As I think it through, it's probably a safe thing to do, though, just to sort of have them put it out so you can see it. And if you need to, you can take the money and count it out in front of you like you would, and then stack it all together and then put it back in front of them. So, if you watch the buy-in video, you can see how to do that. But I've noticed in a lot of poker rooms, you just ask them verbally how much they're playing, and that's fine. You get a chip runner coming over or a supervisor to do the buy-in, and then you just deal the hand out. Like, you're literally probably going to take it out of the shuffle machine, cut it. Let's say that there's a button that's actually in the game this time. And let's even make it challenging and say that they're the big blind. So then you just start pitching. You pitch them in, and again, first you're going to say, we'll say 300, 300 behind seat number, and you have to say the seat number, right? So it's wherever it is. So 300 behind seat 8, we'll say in this case, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We'll say that there's one empty seat and it's a 9-handed game. So 300 behind seat 8, and you deal that out, and as you're dealing out the hand, these players are going to have their stacks already. As you're dealing out the hand, action's not going to start with them in this case, but you say big blind is in over here for 5. So you got to announce everything that they're doing very clearly. Greg said, since we're playing 2-5, why don't you play with me? Let's do this. I'll play a hand with you right after this, but in this hand, I'd like to just focus it on actually teaching the thing. Otherwise, it's going to take away from that, in my opinion. So let me just give it a shot this way, and maybe I was wrong. We'll say at the end. So this player's going to fold, and this player's going to fold, and this player's going to raise to 20. This player calls 20. This player folds. This player folds. And this player folds. And we'll give them their change. And then this player has to announce their action. So they say something like call 20, all right? So they would say call at this point. And so then you as the dealer, you announce calls 20 in for 20. So now you take the pot together over here, and what I do is I take the 20 and I put it over here, okay? So that it's like separate. And this chip stack would never actually be here. It would be back here. So let's push this chip stack back here so that we can keep this consistency, right? So right now, I've got this player's chips that they owe to the pot represented right over here. So we're going to bring the flop. And now, let's say hypothetically, it's this player's turn. When the person comes with their buy-in, we stop, especially if it's their turn, we're going to stop everything and we're going to square up, right? So if they come with their buy-in, let's say that they come with it from here, actually. I've got some green chips over here, and it's going to be 300. So let's say that they come with the buy-in and it's 300, and I'm just going to pretend that's not in my bank, right? And they cut out 300. They would probably do some red, but this is just what's convenient for me. You would, as the dealer, you would say, all right, let me take 20 before we do anything else. So you need to clarify that this is not the player's action because it is their turn. So you're stopping the action. You're saying, all right, let's square up right now first. I need the 20. They give you the 20. You give them the change, and then this goes in the pot. All right? Or let's say that they still haven't gotten that back yet. So right here, this has not come yet. Their buy-in's not here. It's their action first. Let's say that, let me look at what they actually have. Let's say they want to bet, they bet 30. You say $30. Right? Now, this player's turn, they're going to fold. This player's turn, they're going to call. All right? So now it's 30 more. So this goes over here. Now, if you're not using this system, let's say you're using a different system, the dealer is definitely going to have to announce how much it is. I do like announcing how much they owe in between streets. So it would be this player owes 50 right now. Then we bring the next card. It's this player's turn again. So they're going to, let's say that they bet 75. So you say bet 75. This player is going to raise and make it 150. This player says call. So now they call for another 150. In this case, this player is now in for 200, which makes it pretty easy. And let's say it goes check, check. They both show down their hands. And let's say that I had to flip it so we could do the demo properly. Like if they win the pot, they just get all these chips and they're not owed anything. If they lose the pot, as they do here, you have to keep track of what they lose. So right here, you would just want to count this out, right? So you would go, this is 100, 200, right? Which we already said, but you're verifying it. So 200, and maybe what you do is you take two spacers and you put them over here or something like that, right? And you're keeping track. All right, this player owes 200 for the next hand, and you push this pot, put that over there. Now they have 100. Now maybe they put another 200 out on the table, and now they have 300 coming, and they also are adding on another 200. So now you say an additional 200 behind for a total of 300 in play. You have to do the math and say how much they're playing in between hands. And you know, it's one of those things where you're making sure that you keep track of it. You're announcing everything clearly to the table, and you're running your game under an unfavorable circumstance. Keeping track of the money in the pot is, in my opinion, or using the money in the pot is, in my opinion, a very effective way to do it. I have seen some dealers not want to push the pot until the buy-in actually shows up. I think you can push the pot and sort of deal with it, but yeah, it's that type of thing where you just keep going and going and going. So now you've got 200 that this player owes this player over here, and you got to remember who they owe it to. The next hand, maybe they play, and in this case it would be the small blind, so they'd be in for 2. Let's say they fold. Okay, now it's 202, so you'd probably go like this, you know, where you take $2 like that, and you sort of put it aside. So I took 2 spacers representing 100 each because that's what I have in my bank. I mean, I'm sort of making it up as I go here. Ideally, I'd probably have enough chips, and I might even take these chips and put them aside here. Generally speaking, you don't want to put large denomination chips on the outside tops of the bank because people can steal them. But realistically, it's kind of okay to do little one-off things where you're using it to keep track of something because you know exactly how much is supposed to be there also. And so does everybody else at the table. So that's how to deal with money behind. That's one method that you can use. There's definitely other methods as well. Rasmus says, "What's up?" and "What are you explaining?" and welcome. This was a question asking about how to deal with a player who has done a buy-in and a supervisor or chip runner has taken the buy-in from the table, and how to deal them in and keep track of what they owe to the pot. Oh, cool. You figured it out anyway. But yeah, so that's sort of how you do that. I've seen other methods where sometimes the dealer will just take lammers for fills and stuff and put those lammers aside. You can usually get any amount with a good set of lammers. And lammers have different purposes. Sometimes they're used for fills, sometimes they're used for foreign currency when, like, say that you work in a casino that's on the border between United States and Canada or something like that. You might have people that come and buy in with Canadian money, and then you can give them their proper exchange rate for the day. I've seen that before too. Those lammers, the thing you want to be careful about with those types of lammers is you want to make sure that you are not confusing the normal procedure that's being used for those lammers. So let's say that you always put the lammers right here for a fill, right? Or right here for a fill. Well, you wouldn't want to put it there. You would want to probably put the lammers in your bank somewhere. And a lot of the time in a normal tray, this isn't a normal tray, but in a normal tray there will be 2 slots where you can put card decks, like decks. And then there's a little bit of space up top in the center on them. That's a good place to put lammers in general, and that's a good place to keep track of all this stuff if you have lammers in your table, which I would probably go to lammers if possible, honestly. Let's see. You're probably waiting for a fill then. Greg said, would you still prove the money to the cameras as well? Would you still prove the money to the cameras as well? I guess I don't fully understand that question. I just noticed that just now. Let's see. Would you still prove the money? You always want to be clear with the money that goes on, like when you do a buy-in. It's the person that's taking the money from the player. So if this player is doing a buy-in or getting chips from a supervisor or a chip runner, the supervisor or chip runner, part of their procedure, which is separate from what I do as the dealer in this case, their procedure is to verify that on the table. So they are going to do that. And because they're going to do that, you usually can make an adjustment if needed. That's why I was saying it's a little bit safer. The cage would do that too, yeah. But we're talking about, like, as the dealer, you're supposed to, if the player says they want 300, there's only one scenario where it's a problem. Look, if a player says they want 300 and they come out with 280 in cash, they're supposed to put 300 in there, and it would be a supervisor decision if you're going to allow them to do some other amount or any other amount. Say they give the supervisor 340. You as a dealer would say 300 plays this hand. You wouldn't allow them to play the entire amount because you've already dealt the cards out after making that announcement. And if they come in and they try to give the supervisor 260, you would pay attention to that and you would hear 260 and say this player's already announced that they're in for 300 and they're currently in the hand. And if the supervisor says I need another 40, which they would at that point, if the player says I don't have any more than that, the supervisor would have to make a decision how to handle it. For me, if I hear that a player already announced that they're in for 300, they have to go get 300 in order to play. And if they're in for, I would basically tell them, look, if you end up playing, like you're in for 300, I don't care if you don't have it, you can go to an ATM, you have to get the rest of that money. That's how much you verbally committed to, that type of thing. But, say that they give some sob story. I could see a supervisor possibly saying, all right, they're only in for 260 as it turns out. But I mean, you wouldn't make that adjustment as a supervisor unless it's earlier in the hand, and you don't want to set that as a precedent for something that you can do. It's a pretty complicated thing, honestly, and I would say, as a dealer, don't worry about those things. You just, whatever the player says, you announce that amount, and then they're essentially going to be held to it in most cases. Chad said, I was thinking about getting different poker chips, was looking at China clays. They're a little pricey to me. Currently, I have poker chips that look like yours on your table that's style-wise, not design. There would be a kind, would you recommend? I was looking at Paulson's too. And then Greg said, hey Chad, American Gaming Supply can make custom chips for you if you want. And Chad said, thank you. So my answer to that is I've never used China clays. I do have a desire to sort of get familiar with the best chips that are out there for home games. It's one of these really interesting things, right? Like, I learned how to work in casinos, and therefore I use casino products, which are only able to be sold to casinos. So because they don't sell them to individuals, it's very difficult to find, for me to find regular chips that are not casino industry chips. That being said, a good friend of mine is helping me get casino quality chips that are actually sold to casinos because, once somebody is a director of a room, they create a relationship with the vendor, and I am going to start getting branded products. I'm going to start with cards. Here, let me show you guys what they're going to look like. And this is probably about 3 months away. Chips are going to come pretty soon after this, but I am starting to create the True Poker Dealer product line with. These are going to be products that are generally used in casinos that I'll be able to sell. Just because, like, you know, at the end of the day, relationships are everything, right? So let me show you guys this. And you can just get a sense of what I'm talking about. So chips are on my list. Chips are a little bit tricky, but you know, I'm going to be working with people in the industry in order to get the right products for everybody here. So this is the first run at what the cards are going to look like. I'm just not showing it on the screen yet because, you know, it's all in my email, etc. But here. So we can sort of see this. Let me shrink this down a bit. So you kind of get the idea here of what this would look like. The front and backs, and we got a couple different color designs to start. So these are going to be casino cards that I'll be selling probably within the next 3 months. And yeah, I mean, I'll be able to get whatever color. The only thing is when I order them, I have to order a lot of them up front. After I do that, like after I order the cards, I have to, like, if you guys want different colors that I'm not currently showing, absolutely I can get them. It just takes time to get it shipped from China because it's quite a process. But let's see. But yeah, so right now, Chad, like I'm pretty. I know how. If I could find chips that I felt really good about, like these ones I like, honestly. But if you're like a collector of some sort, these are the Casino Ace chip, I think. But I mean, you saw the Paulsons or the Pharaohs that I used. I can't support buying them because they crumbled so much. But the China Clays, I've heard good things about. I've never actually seen them, not in person, I mean. And I crave to have a true, honest recommendation. Like when I finally do recommend a chip set, like it's gonna be a real recommendation. These are good for like training, but if I think you're asking about like a nice home chip set to enjoy, and yeah, I'm excited about that. I mean, also part of the reason I'm doing all this, I'm putting together a kit that anybody that gets the True Poker Dealer membership would be able to purchase that would make it easy for them to do training at home. And I'm trying to keep it under $150, possibly even under $130. I don't know what the price of the kit will be. I have to do a lot of work in order to figure that stuff out. But it would have a felt that you could put on a dining room table with a little like thing that raises up on the side of the felt so you can pitch and it doesn't fly off. I would have the padding underneath so that you could get under the cards when you're shuffling and stuff. The chips, the right cards, all that stuff. I'd want it to be pretty cheap and branded, but also decent quality. And I think it's doable. It's just that these products aren't generally sold for training purposes to people at home, so it's a new thing that I'm having to put together. But I believe I'll answer a lot of the chip questions as I go through and do that. But it's a lot of work. I mean, honestly, it's a lot to figure out there. So I'm not rushing it. I'm trying to do it well. You said when you do a buy-in. Let me see. So the question you asked is would you still prove the money to the cameras as well, like when you do a buy-in? I gotcha. So the answer is no, I wouldn't do that. If a chip runner or a supervisor are taking the money, then they do their thing. The camera coverage covers here, but it also covers everywhere on the table, so they can just do it wherever the player is at the table as long as they do it somewhere that's visible to a camera. And no, I would never have the dealer do that. I understand that you're saying it's a nice little verification, but it's just as solid of a verification over on their area of the table. And there's no reason to slow the game down and force the dealer to stop everything they're doing and do that when they're not going to be the ones that are providing the chips. So I would say you do not have the dealer do that. Only do that. So say that a player has a wad of cash that seems like small bills. all right, instead of taking their word for how much it is, I might verify it just to kind of go above and beyond. But I wouldn't say you have to do that. If you feel like there might be an issue, it'd probably be quicker to say, hey, just so you know, whatever you say right now, you're going to be committed to. So, if you need to figure out how much it is, I can count it for you, something like that. But to automatically go into it, I would say you don't need to do that. Let me see. Craig said, I'd love to use your products on a homemade poker table. Yeah. And I'm talking to Chanman Poker Tables about some of that stuff, trying to figure out, maybe I can get a line where there's a clear True Poker Dealer style table for people to purchase, and like there'd be a high end one, a low end one, stuff like that. But a lot of the vendors, they don't want to do the inexpensive stuff because it takes away from people buying their expensive stuff, and that's me speculating. I don't know that for sure, but that's sort of the vibe I get. So I'm sort of, I got to be careful about it. That's why Chad sending me that Pennsylvania company for $500 tables that look pretty nice is helpful. But I want them to have folding legs and all that. Right now, from what I've seen, about $900 to get a folding legs table that's decent quality, and like shipping isn't included in that number, so you got to add shipping. It's a lot of money. It's like it doesn't have to be that much, but it's also somebody's got to create a well-oiled machine in order to sell a lot of these. Let's see. Chad said, I bought the Hoyle waterproof playing cards. Love them. I'll give them a 9 out of 10. Reason for not a perfect score is because the print comes off after several uses. That's a common problem. I mean, even the casino ones, sometimes you run into the bleeding, is what we call it. The cards bleed a bit. Yeah, that's interesting. Well, I guess bleeding is when it gets on other surfaces, but the cards, the print coming off can definitely stink. I've seen that on chems as well. If they would fix that issue, they would be great. I love how they pinch and bend and wash. Yep. Rasmus said, recently I heard a story of cards being mucked. How is it handled in your experience? Is it a general issue in the industry? Greg said, fair enough, thanks for the lesson. So, yeah, as a dealer, if a player has their cards out unprotected, let's say this player has their cards out and they don't have a chip on them like they should. Every player's responsibility is to protect their hand. I think that's TDA rule number 2, and it's a major industry-wide concept, right? So, with that said, if you have, if a player has their cards kind of out like this, carelessly on the table, it's very possible that a dealer is going to muck them. Why? Because that's what dealers do. They're supposed to muck hands. So when that happens, he said marked, not mucked. I appreciate you stepping in there and stopping me from not knowing what I was answering. So let's start over and answer the correct question. First of all, the coating on the cards, in terms of cards getting marked, the coating on the cards is supposed to be strong enough that when a player is bending it and trying to get their thumb into it and all that stuff, you want it to be really hard to mark them that way. Players do try to do that stuff. They'll get away with anything they think they can get away with and not get in trouble for it. Recently, within the last 10 years, cards have been made a lot better so that it's harder to mark them, and the camera coverage has gotten better so it's easier to see who's doing it. So people get discouraged nowadays from trying to mark cards because they get kicked out, right? Like if you're defiling property, and you're ruining the casino property, they are absolutely going to find you and get rid of you if they can. And it depends how busy surveillance and the poker room staff is when this happens, but they could easily go and watch tape. When they find marked cards on a table, they're gonna go back at some point and try to find who did it, and that person is going to have to pay the consequence, which usually speaking is they get kicked out, sometimes for 24 hours, sometimes for a lot longer. So there's a discouraged thing there, but it still happens, and people still try to put little tiny markings on the cards. I've heard of stories where players, they'll put something that only shows up with a certain type of glasses, and they'll mark the cards like that. some of that stuff can be really hard to catch, honestly, and I guess I'm unintentionally giving people ideas. Don't do that. It's not worth it. You don't get to play at that poker room anymore if you get caught with this. But that's also why, in poker we burn a card, because if the top card of the deck is marked, well, now it's just been burned, and you're not able to gain information about what the flop's going to be ahead of time that way. Same thing. If this card's marked, well, it's the burn card, so it doesn't help you in terms of that. It only helps you in terms of what other players might have, and it certainly creates an issue where there's a certain comfort thing. Basically, though, anytime any card on any table shows up as marked in any way, supervisor is called to the table immediately, and they take the deck out of play and replace it with a brand new deck, and it's investigated at that point. So the dealer, once you see any type of a marking on any card, you have to call a supervisor, and then it sort of gets handled from there. Greg says, in the industry it's known as getting 86th. The terms can be as short as 24 hours up to and including life. 86th is a term that's used with that. It's funny that you said it like that. I've seen it even be same day, come back after this hour, because sometimes the casinos are operating on a shift thing. So what'll happen is when you get 24 hours, you could be kicked out at 3 a.m. If the gaming day resets at 6 a.m., then you could technically come back after 6 a.m. Just you're kicked out for 3 hours, but you do have to leave the property when you're kicked out. And so everybody keeps track of that. Kostadin, thank you for joining on the live stream level. Appreciate it. Happy to have you here. Lots of good stuff in there. So always happy to see somebody join on that level. Thank you. Rasmus says, solid info. Can you give advice how to spot marked cards as a dealer? So this is something that's sort of ironic. Supervisors almost hate having to deal with this, and they kind of don't want to be bothered with it. As a dealer, you still have to do it. And I'm not saying every supervisor, but what'll happen is sometimes you get shuffle machines. They grab the card and send it through, and they push it in the same spot on the card over and over and over again. And by pushing the same spot, you can get a little half moon marking where you become very suspicious of all the players doing it, but really it's just a shuffle machine. And there's this thing where if all of the cards have it, they don't worry about it, and they just leave the deck in play. But in terms of paying attention to it, the time you generally notice it for the very first time, when you have a suited deck at the table, let's pretend that this is suited. First, before you start dealing with that deck, let's say it's a tournament and you're on break and you suited the deck because you're supposed to suit decks on tournament breaks. This whole thing gets suited. You verify that every card is here. Again, this is if this was suited. Then you turn it over, and before you put it into play, you actually check and verify that every single card back is not marked. Beyond that, it's just if you see it. You don't really have to do anything special. If you notice that a card is marked, then you call a supervisor. If you notice that, or a lot of the time a player is going to notice it, honestly. They're going to get a card, they'll have their hand, and they'll play the hand out, and when they go to fold it is when they're going to tell you, they'll show you, there's something on this card right here, and then you call a supervisor for that. You don't have to, stop your game to call a supervisor if the hand was folded, but you do call a supervisor and sort of let them keep playing and let the supervisor determine what to do at that point. But no, you don't really have to do a whole lot in order to identify marked cards. There's the procedure where you first get a new deck, and just so you guys know, new deck is a term that's a little bit misleading here. A deck that is suited is not always new. These decks stay in circulation on the tables sometimes for as much as 3 months, right? 90 days. It's usually 30 to 90 days that they're in circulation. Every single time you close a table, the deck gets suited. The deck, if it's a good deck, gets put away, and then they pull it out when they open a new game. And so you reuse the same decks over and over again until they all get replaced. And so when you get a new deck, it might have markings on the back of it, and you're going to make sure of that. Also, sometimes there's printing issues on the cards. So when you get a brand new deck that's never been used before, you have to check the back of it especially carefully because you don't want there to be any misprints on the back. It can make a big difference that way. Let's see. So Greg says, what if the casino has a hotel attached? Would you be able to just head back to your hotel room? No. I believe if you get kicked out, you have to leave property. However, getting kicked out of a poker room and getting kicked out of a casino are not always the same. Sometimes a player is just kicked out of the poker room and they're allowed to go and do whatever they want in the rest of the casino. Generally speaking, that is every time somebody gets kicked out, there's a communication between the heads of the poker department that are on property. So it's usually the shift manager, and the security department. So it'll start with a couple of the regular security guards, and then it'll involve one of their shift managers. And so then they talk and they evaluate it, and then they handle how they want to do it. Someone could absolutely get kicked out of just poker. It really depends on what it is that they're doing and what the circumstances are within that. Let's see. Chad says, Ramses, they are great cards, but the print, yes, it's a general issue in the industry. The print comes off very easily after several uses. Yeah, if you have the print come off on the back, then that's essentially considered a marked card as well. But Chad's saying it's not on the outside of the card, it's on the face side of the cards the print comes off of. So that might have been what you were asking about. Yeah, for whatever reason, that's 100% true, and it's interesting. It's never occurred to me that that's so true. I think it's probably because they put extra coating on the back in order to make sure that someone can't dig into the card, but there's not as much need on the front because even if this smears or gets a little bit marked on the front, I mean, you can still play with it. Then it becomes a question of whether or not your room has a standard of excellence, right? Because I've seen plenty of cards where the faces of the cards are sort of messed up, but you can definitely tell what the card is. And Greg's saying, so you have to consider the totality of the circumstances. Gotcha. Now, about that 2-5 hand. All right, fine, we'll do it. No problem here. So, let's see. So, Greg is a member of the All Texas Hold'em Lessons level, and he has asked me if he can play a 2-5 hand with me, and I have no issue with that. So we're going to do this here. Let's see. He's got it. So we'll go like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. You get 5 hands, and I'll take 4 hands over here, and I'll be the small and the big blind, and you can be. So you're going to be under the gun through the hijack, right? And right now, Greg and I are going to play a hand against each other, and we'll see what happens. So this is 2-5 no limit, so I'll put these blinds out. It looks like 5-5, but we're playing 2-5 right here. Man, it's hard to pitch when there's no actual players. You guys learn that when you do your own practicing. All right, so Greg, I am going to turn away so I can't see these hands, and I'm going to flip all your hands up. Please tell me if you cannot see them. I'm just flipping these up so that you can take your actions. All right, so I have not seen any of your hands. And under the gun raises to 25. Ooh, interesting. All right. Rasmus says, I can't. Can I see under the gun +1 again? Sure. I think this is funny too, Rasmus, for the record. But yeah, I mean, you know what? I don't have an issue with this. You get to see what decision making I make in a hand and what decision making he makes. Did you get him, Greg? Ooh, makes the call. Interesting. Here, I'll call with a green chip. And I'll go like this just in case you need it again. Just in case you need it again. Just in case you need it again. And obviously everybody in the audience can watch too. So I'm going to start looking at some of my hands here while you're deciding what you want to do with your other hands. What about this hand right here? Are you calling this hijack? 1? Oh wait, you said under the gun. No, you have 5 hands. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are all your hands. So I think you're saying this hand folds. I'm going to put this over here because I can always put it back if that's not what you meant. Under the gun +2 again. The other hands too. Alright, I'm going to do this. Alright, here are the hands that you have. Make sure that you can see them. I don't know what I'm looking at. Alright, so I'm turning that over, and turning that over. I think I got it right. I did it. The rest of my hands fold. Alright. So this hand folds. This hand's going to make the call. This hand folds. Make a little change. Alright. And this hand's going to make the call. So we're 4 ways to the flop. And actions over here. This hand's going to check. So it's checked over to your original pre-flop raiser. I think this is like a 10 to 15 second delay, so if you're wondering why I'm just sitting here, that's why. Under the gun checks, and so does under the gun +1. If that's the case, the button is going to bet 50, and this player will fold. And I'm going to put this aside so you can see what hand I called with. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But yeah, this is a fold. And so over here, 50 to call. Under the gun shoves. Alright. So that is a shove for, let me see, 300, 400 even. So that's an all-in for 400. Alright. And what about under the gun +1? Under the gun +1 folds. So I'm going to say that this is a fold over here, and I'm going to let this one go. And so you win this, and you win the pot. And I'm going to do a reveal for myself. I think everybody else knows what your hand is, but me. So now I get to see what it... Actually, I'll show this one first. So this one was a King Jack suited. Decided to call this one on the big blind, and with this flop, not really worth continuing. And now everybody already knows what you have. You shoved with a Jack-9. I love that you did that. My honest opinion is it's really easy to do that when you're not playing for real money. But you did get top pair aces to fold that you were nearly drawing dead against, and you have absolutely won this victory, so touche. I accept. I think that's totally worth it. It's been difficult to beat me to this point, and you know, when you start to learn that Marc gets dealt the best hand each time, you got to find another way to win. Nah, don't be sorry. Listen, with an ace 4 on that board, I can't call an all-in check shove, right? That could be ace king. That could be a set. With that board, there's very few bluffs that you have, and in your case, you just went for the bluff, and you won, and that's pretty awesome. So I say congrats, felicitaciones. I think I said that wrong, but gotta get my smart water after that. Get a little smarter. For the record, if you have an ace 3 on the button when a player raises from under the gun, when it goes raise call under the gun, if you're calling an ace 4 suited and you flop top pair and you get check raised just like that, it's probably a good fold for what it's worth. And so Greg, knowing that, it's a good play as well. All right, so now I want to get back to the actual video that I sort of teased here. And I have to, let's go like this. All right, so let's just do this actually. Why not make it full screen? It's such a funny face to pause on. It's crazy that that's me. I had a nice tan, huh? So let's see. All right, let's go a little more into this.
Correctly, you get to deal more hands per hour. That's good for you. That's good for the house. That's good for the players. You get to avoid different types of arthritis that can result from extended dealing, such as your shoulder and your wrist. So I highly, highly recommend learning it correctly. Now let's just jump right into it. The first thing that you want to note when you pitch, your elbows, you want to be in by your sides. You don't want to be out here and you don't want to be out here. Elbows in by your sides. The next thing, the palms face the ceiling for the most part. You can tilt them in a little bit, but it's pretty much like this, as opposed to like this or anything like.
So I wanna be a little vulnerable and honest here for a second. That's a buzzword nowadays. When I deal, I teach people to deal in like this. I did not originally learn to do that. I was taught to learn to deal out, and it was by somebody that told me not to do it, but I did it anyway. The reason I learned to deal out was because when you're learning to pitch, it's a little bit easier to get the cards to the seats without flipping them over while you're still learning. For me, I feel like because I learned table games first and not poker, the poker pitch was something I had to kind of figure out as I went. My mechanics were otherwise really sound. What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that it's really hard to break habits, sort of like I said earlier, and I had to really teach myself to bring my hands in and pitch from here. I still sometimes go back to putting my arms out, and I tell you, my back is in way worse shape from that. Getting your arms in here to pitch is really valuable. Also, one of the number one complaints that I get is every single day, okay? It feels like every single day people are asking me why they flip cards over to seats 2 and 3. I said, put your palms up toward the ceiling. Players that don't put their palms up toward the ceiling, when you have a deck in your hand and you have this hand, I'm not talking about the deck hand, I'm talking about your hand right here. Okay, let me make myself bigger and show this point. When you have your deck, your pitching hand palm toward the ceiling, you're not going to flip cards as much. When you start to go this way, it makes it easier to flip cards. So train yourself to open your palm up as much as you can comfortably. And if you notice, it's easier to keep your palm up closer to your body than when you're out here. When you come out a little bit, it tends to turn more. When you come in, it goes straight up. Chris said had a short write-up, but YouTube caps at 200 characters, so I sent it to your email instead. Oops. Basically, in short, it says you're the real deal and a good guy, so you're getting my money. And Chris just joined the All Texas Hold'em Lessons, and that is awesome. Super happy to have you in there. Definitely reach out to me, and I'll respond to your email. But that's really cool, and thank you. So, let's see. So when you pitch here and notice too, for me, this is a large table I'm on. People get a little bit scared to pitch from back here with a large table. And you can easily get that distance if you practice it. You don't want to be up here though. Like I'm just doing this. This is something I messed up before in my communication. You don't want to have the cards up here. I'm doing that because of my camera shot. You want to have it right down toward the yeah, if I do this, it's going to sort of mess up the look here. It's going to be a little confusing seeing it, but you want to be down here with it because you can get wherever you need from down here, and it keeps them from being exposed, basically. But that is... Now I'm going to go back to my secret setup here. Chris, I'm actually really excited to see that email. May I get your permission to share this comment in a future video of mine about the real deal and all that stuff? Because I'm pretty bad. I mean, honestly, I'm pretty bad at self-promotion. And the thing that I thought about doing was putting comments like yours, which I super appreciate, in a section where it's like in the background of a video that's sort of explaining it. It said, "Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Very, very very much appreciate that." Whatever brings you business. All right. Appreciate that too. Thank you. So let's hit play and we'll keep going on this now for a bit.
Okay. Now, understand that one of the reasons for that is if you tilt the deck this way, which you sometimes see dealers do, and I don't recommend it, every card you take off has that little chance of flashing, and sometimes the dealer will flash every single card, and the people that see it, sometimes they don't want to say anything because they get to see all the cards.
I used to play a lot of poker at Foxwoods, and every once in a while there would be an absolutely amazing dealer that would just pitch so fast, to get the cards out so quick. And for whatever reason, they would always tilt the deck, and they would do this thing where they would go like, there would be a build-up, there would be a player that was excited for them to pitch because of how good they were at it, and they would always tilt the deck and you'd be able to see all of them. And I was just like, okay, they're fast, but you can see every card coming off the deck. Like, literally, I would see players just kind of go like this as they're pitching if you're on the correct side in order to be able to see it, and they could see every single card. Super, super important to not be that person.
So, you're in this position right here, and now we're going to get a nice tight shot so that you can really see what I'm doing. Okay, so here we are. This will allow you to be able to see what I'm doing a little bit better. The first thing I want to show you, when you hold the deck, angle the cards just like this. Alright, if you hold the deck flat like this, it just makes a little bit more work for you when you go to pitch the cards. Be careful when you angle it though, not to angle it so much that anything is exposed or choppy. You want it to be a smooth angle. Alright, the next thing, your forefinger is protecting the front of the cards, but note that you can't have it going up too high, because if it's up too high when you pull a card off, it's going to bend like this. You want it to come off flat. This finger, this finger, this finger, and this finger are all going to be what feels how many cards it is, and it's always going to be one card, and you use these to feel. Same over here. If you grip it too much and the fingers are up too high, when you push the card off, it's going to bend and it's going to expose. You want to be careful not to do that.
This is all pretty basic grip stuff, but it has to be taught. That's why I went through it.
With your nice angle here.
Greg says there's one dealer at Mohegan Sun who can pitch super fast and you can't see any cards, so he's the best of both worlds, I'd say. There was one at Foxwoods too that I was blown away, and they didn't expose anything. They kept it very level and they did it very well. I have this vision at some point of, the question is, what do people want to see for the regular videos on my channel, right? Well, I have this vision of creating little competition stuff between dealers in different places. I still have to get a bit more set up in order to do that. I want to get a nicer table and all those things. Maybe at some point I'll do a marathon to help raise money in order to get some of this equipment so I can do things like competitions. But I've done them in poker rooms in the training room before. By the way, a lot of poker rooms, they actually have training rooms where you can go to because it's very sensitive to use the gaming equipment that's actually used in the room for practice. So a lot of the times they don't let you do that. They don't want the real dollar chips to be used. So they'll have a separate room that's not under surveillance, where it's none of the real gaming equipment, like different cards, not the real cards, different chips, not the real chips, and it can't be on the floor. And we used to go in there at one property I worked at, and like we would challenge people to all kinds of different things, just as like a fun thing for people to do during breaks. They would really enjoy it. Like, it makes dealing more fun. I would love to get videos of that stuff, but I have to have a setup and not quite there yet. Greg says, I don't know if this is a thing anymore, but there used to be a Dealer Olympics. That sounds like what you're describing. So there is a Dealer Olympics. I'm not looking to host the competition of all competitions. And I'm not looking to have it be like televised or any of that stuff. I just want to capture dealers competing against other dealers on whatever level makes sense, because I know people like that. Like, I've seen there's some videos that they have competition stuff and people click them and really like them. And I feel like, with True Poker Dealer would be a fun thing to do. And I just have to get the equipment and the setup. And it's like I'm working toward getting a studio that's got really all the right stuff for myself. This studio that I'm in now, it gets the job done. But as I've learned more about what to do, there's more and more that goes into it, sort of. I would need a separate room for the competition that was all set up for when we were going to do stuff in there. And we'll see when. I mean, I might incorporate that with live poker coaching a bit too. But it's pretty cool. So, all right, I'm going to go back to this.
Now, when you push the card off the deck, you want to push it, and this is going to be.
Greg says I'd play in your studio. I would love that.
Keep your elbows in, like I said before, and keep your palms up so that the deck is parallel to the table. When you go like this, you're going to push. This is your primary pitch. You push the card off a little bit at this angle. You grab it right here with your forefinger and your thumb, and then your middle finger right here is going to find a little divot that's comfortable for you. Everybody's got a divot that's a little bit different, and this is what's going to project it. When the middle finger goes from this position to open, that's how you project the card. So you grab it up in this upper right corner, about right here, without pushing it too far off the deck. You get this thumb out of the way, you make sure this finger's out of the way, you find your little divot with the middle finger, and you use the card over here as a little bit of a ramp, is actually a suggested way to do it. And you just open your hand up like that. Here's your follow through. These fingers go like this. No wrist action, no arm motion, none of this stuff. It's just push the card into your hand, and you open your finger up, and you push it with your middle finger.
So I want to share that there are many different ways to pitch that don't lead to problems. This is one of them. Okay, this one's completely acceptable for the industry on the highest level. There's nothing wrong with it. I also at the end of the day, these two versions of pitching are the ones that I learned well enough to be able to teach masterfully. I have a bunch of footage that I hope to release at some point from 8-9 years ago. And there's a friend of mine, her name is Gio, and she starts, if you notice in this pitch that I'm showing in this video, my finger starts, let me see how I can show this. My finger starts sort of bent and then goes to fully extended in order to project the card. Gio does it a little different. She starts with her finger fully back and then goes to half projected. And so she's pitching like this each time. They're both completely acceptable. They're both not going to lead to any problems. I did want to mention though that there's more than one way to do it, and I think there's a real beauty to the different ways of doing this. And at some point I'd like to teach the alternate ways as well and give people some choices of how to learn, see what feels better for them, stuff like that. But the one thing that I'll say is the second pitch that I teach here, not the first one, the second one that I teach here, that one gives me so much control that it's just fun to be able to pitch that way. I really like that. Chris says, amazing how well I can deal shuffle already just because of the free videos, including the one we're watching. I do notice sometimes the deck is traveling a bit in my left hand, giving my pitch hand a bit of inconsistent issues, loss and extra cards sometimes. Any quick thoughts there for adjustment? Let me see. Traveling a bit in my left hand, giving my pitch a bit of inconsistent issues. So you're saying that as you're pitching, the deck sort of travels down a little bit, maybe. I've never personally run into that. Right. You said obviously it'd be easier to figure out in person with something like this, but yeah. So, toss an extra card sometimes. So I'm gonna just check in with you. There's so many different like things to evaluate here. I appreciate this question, and definitely appreciate that you purchased a membership, and I want to make sure that I cover this properly. So ask your follow-up questions here if needed. I have noticed that a dealer. So I do not teach. If you look at my hand in this video right here, okay, you can see where my pinky is. My pinky is still on the outside of the deck. Okay, I have noticed, and I don't know that this is what you're doing, but I'm just saying this. I've noticed that when a person puts the pinky on the bottom of the deck, which some places teach, sometimes it's easier to pitch 2 cards out. It's something I ran into when people would, like, I was a shift manager, and people would come to me and say, like, hey, like, originally what one dealer came and said to me was, these cards suck. Like, these cards, they get worn in so soon, blah, blah, blah. Like, you have to tell the director to get new cards. I keep pulling 2 cards off the top, but nobody else was complaining about it. So I'm like, I wonder what's going on for you. Because, yeah, they're a little sticky, but I mean, I can do it no problem. So I observed, and I noticed that his pinky was over on the bottom. And when he made the adjustment, now he'd been a dealer for a while, and he did not like making the adjustment. But when he did make the adjustment, he never had that problem again. Yeah, it could be where you've got your position, but I would say, look, in this video, you can see the shape of the grip. All right, it's actually, let me show it just like this. Right here, how do I want to show this? Right here, I've got my pinky on the outside down toward the bottom. This finger, this finger, this finger, this finger up top, and this finger and this whole side of my hand are all keeping the deck in place together. So the first thing I would suggest is you see, do you feel control over the cards on this part of your palm? Do you feel control of the cards with your thumb here? Do you feel control of the cards with your index finger? Do you feel control of the cards with all 3 of these fingers? Are they all really holding it? That's the first thing that I would sort of ask you if they're moving around. And then in terms of pushing off more than 1 card, I would say, from what I've seen, when decks get stickier, the lower down on the edges you are, the more difficult. But look, you just made a purchase. I super appreciate that. If you want to send me a little video of yourself doing this via email, I'll be happy to take a look at it and respond to it. I don't mind stuff like that. The email, I'll put it right here just in case you don't have it. It's just marc@truepokerdealer.com. So you could just record it with your phone or something like that. You're going to have to figure out how to balance and set it up and show it. But if the stuff I just said didn't help you, then just show it to me and I can see what you're doing and make an evaluation there. No problem at all. Let's see. All right, so let's go back to this video.
One more time, I'll do it slowly. Push the card out, and you open. Push the card out, open. Notice I'm grabbing the top right corner like I said. Push the card out, and you open. Now ideally you want to be open a little bit more than I am with my hands. Open. It's okay to miss sometimes, especially when you're practicing. Do not expect to get this right away. If you feel like you got it right away, congratulations, you're one of the few. Push the card out and open. Push the card out and open. Now, if you're grabbing too hard with your thumb and your index finger, that's going to make it so that when you push the card, it's going to bend up. It's a loose grip with these fingers, real loose. And then as you push your middle finger out to propel the card, you release.
You know what, Chris? Something just occurred to me. When you're pushing the cards out, there's a feel that you're supposed to get. These fingers right here are ensuring that it's only 1 card, especially this finger right here. Your middle finger is ensuring that only 1 card's coming off. It should be verifying as you're pushing out that it's only 1. And it should be catching it it should be catching any additional cards. So like with my thumb, when I'm going to push, I could see, like right now, I don't know if you can tell, there's 2 cards that I have pushing, and I can feel that, and you could probably feel that too. But yeah, it's pushing off of this finger so that you're sort of allowing yourself to feel with these fingers how many cards it is right away. And then it's something that you get used to. But yeah, we can take a look if you need that. You say cool, appreciate the response. Greg said I got it right away when this first came out. I really should become a poker dealer. Listen, you make good money as a dealer. Just saying. Although it sounds like you have a long drive. Let's see.
With these ones, the timing of it's pretty tough to get used to.
The thing I just said there was talking about how the real magic of the pitch is it's once you get the card into position in order to pitch, there's a balance between, like, you have to project with your middle finger, but you also have to learn exactly when to release with your thumb and your index finger. And that becomes the thing that is what the pitch really has. Like, that's where the magic is. It's setting it up and timing it so that it's perfectly in sync like that. Chris says, cool, Greg, my poker dealer training school starts in a couple weeks. That's awesome. Super glad to hear that, Chris. For anybody that's watching right now, I really believe genuinely that my lessons will teach somebody everything that they need to know. That said, dealer schools are good too. I would recommend, if you want to get yourself the highest chance of passing an audition, the highest chance is going to be to do both. Get my information, get their information. You get a lot of perspective, a lot of information. And there's something about being in a dealer school where the instructor is not going to remember to tell you everything every single time. And up until now, there's never been a chance to be able to kind of go through more than one dealer school either, right? That's part of the value of True Poker Dealer is you can go and learn how to do it. And then you can learn how to do it at a school. You can learn how to do it with True Poker Dealer. And now you have more perspective. And you can even take the stuff that I say, if it contradicts what they say, and ask them questions about it. You can reach out to me and ask me questions about what they teach. My general way of doing it, because I teach people all over the world that all deal in different facilities with different rule sets, I have to be a lot more passive in the seriousness that I say, this is the right way to do it. I can't do that because I have so many different people, but dealer schools can. They can say, this is how you have to deal. They're not wrong, but they're not going to be right either because, if any poker room is open and there's dealers professionally dealing there a different way than what they're saying, then that makes them right. They're professional dealers in a real poker room, so therefore they're right, But it's cool to hear that you're doing both because it's just going to increase the amount that you bring to the table when it comes time to audition. So very happy to hear that. Let's see. Greg said, the only trouble is I'm so far north in Vermont, I'm almost in Canada. I'd have to relocate to some place that has poker. Very best of luck to you, Chris. Hope to sit at your table someday. Appreciate the support. Awesome. Like to do well in all ventures, so trying to get out in front of this. Yeah. I've said this before. I need to say it again. The dealers who pass auditions are the ones who do not just go through the motions. They're the ones that seek it out and make sure that they learn how to do it. So, you taking the step with True Poker Dealer is an example of something that's a differentiator. Like a lot of dealer schools, they say 100 hours of school time between learning the lessons and practice and you'll be a dealer. And what I've found is it's not automatically true at all. It's a question of how much motivation the person puts into it, how much they're focused on learning and doing it well while they're in the school, and how they use their 100 hours. And I personally think 100 hours isn't quite enough in order to really get to the point where you're definitely going to pass an audition. I think it takes more than that, but you have to be doing it with all that seriousness the whole time. Chris says, I doubt what many others from my incoming class are doing what I'm doing to get a jump. Well, that's very normal, is what I would say. A lot of people think if I'm going to spend, I don't know how much money your class is. Depending on where you are, it could be a free class. If it's a part of a casino that has trouble getting dealers, they have to train people sometimes. But then that's only for people that are willing to live in that place. Or it could be as much as 2,000 if it's like I think Crescent's about 2,000 or something. Interesting. Chris said, I mentioned it in the email to you, but the guy that interviewed me said they're going to do a crash course for us for 3 weeks, which he said is a bad idea, but maybe his hands are tied. They pay for it right at the casino, and then we move to actual dealing. That sounds like it might be in Texas, and it's different. You know, you sort of play the hand that you're dealt in life, and it's entirely possible that that room has a lower standard for dealer to start with. North Carolina. Interesting. All right. So I've heard this sort of in Texas as well, and it's going to be like this in Virginia. They're opening up rooms soon too. But yeah, they sometimes they have limited resources, and they kind of say like, do your best. 3 weeks is not enough for the record, like at all, unless you're doing 12-hour days, 7 days a week. Like that's, or 10-hour days, 7 days a week might be enough for that. But yeah, that's pretty hard now that I'm thinking about it. And I know my numbers just went up there a bit because I'm saying 100 hours, but in 3 weeks, like you need the practice time and the incubation time. That's one of the problems with this. You know, if you get all the information at once, it can be challenging. I recommend for people to take a full month to go through the 35 hours worth of lessons. But you know, I'm rooting for you. I'm super curious to hear how this goes for you in North Carolina. And yeah, I hope that you're happy that you're putting this extra work in, because I believe genuinely it's going to pay off, and you're going to be there. Oh, something, Chris, just so you know, and this is for anyone that's in a dealer school, this is an opportunity for you to create positive relationships with people that years later, they're going to be dealers, supervisors, shift managers, possibly directors, right? The people that you meet in your dealer school can help you get jobs later. They can help you get into good situations. You can help them as well. So I would go into this, if I'm you, trying to learn as much as you can and be as good of a dealer as possible, and also, you know, trying to help other people and not feel like you're competing against them, because those relationships, like, they help so much throughout the rest of your life, in my personal opinion, from what I've seen. Chris says, yeah, he worked for WSOP for 15 years. He said it's not a great idea on their part-time frame. It's not a good idea on their part, time frame wise. But I guess it is what it is. They're moving the poker room and adding a lot of tables. And you said you agree, nurture relationships and help others. Awesome. Well, it sounds like you're positioning yourself perfectly to do really well. So that's awesome to hear. And glad to have you be a part of this membership group with True Poker Dealer. Yeah, I'm curious. I hope that you come and you jump into the live streams, you know, next week, the week after that, and so on, as you start going through the school, so that you can kind of share your experiences. I feel like people would really enjoy hearing that too. You know, people in dealer schools, they go through a lot of stuff sometimes in terms of learning, confusion, practice. Shuffle was hard, pitch was hard, although it sounds like you learned that in advance. Dealer schools are a little spoiled nowadays too. I mean, I hate to say this because it's like self-promotion and I have trouble with that, but I mean, there was no resources online when I went to school. Oh, I sound like an old dad, but whatever. Like, there was nowhere to point somebody. You could never have people that entered a school that knew how to shuffle, how to pitch, any of that stuff. Nowadays you can, and a lot of the schools sort of accept that, and they don't even bother teaching people sometimes in these schools how to do that. If I were him with 3 weeks, I would tell everybody to learn the free lessons on True Poker Dealer in advance, because then they go to the school and they have already learned the mechanics, and it's like, that's about a week's worth of training that they don't have to do if everybody learns the mechanics going into there. That's part of why, like, I left it free there. You know, there have been a bunch of times where I've been playing poker and mentioned True Poker Dealer at a table that I'm playing at, and the dealer's like, you taught me how to pitch, like something like that. It's pretty funny, but cool. And that makes me want to segue into teaching how to pitch. Let's keep going on this.
Just like that. Now I'm going to show you another grip as well. Maybe you can learn this one.
First grip from the upper corner, just real quick. It's a quicker pitch. It's less movement. The card doesn't come off as far because it's less of the card that comes off. You grab the very top corner, you pitch it. It's just quicker, less movement. Definitely valuable to learn. That said,
if you're having trouble with the one I just showed you, Ultimately, it would be great if you could learn how to do both because of the situational pitching that may prevent you from pitching the same way all the time. You'll understand that when you watch the follow-up video. But if you push the card more off the deck and you grab it toward the center, a little bit above center, and you get your middle finger back here on the card, you're going to be able to project it more easily out of your hand without actually having to keep it on the deck. You can project the card easier this way. Now you can do it this way too, but there are some situations where you may need to, say the felt that you're working on isn't that good and the card doesn't glide on the felt at all, and you may need to get more distance on it. You can do so by grabbing toward the center of the card, and this way it allows the card to project right around itself a little bit better. There are a few other situations.
I was really happy that I caught all three of those. I did not know that I was going to do that when I did it, and so many people are just like, how did you do that? Like, I can do that like 80% of the time, but not 100% of the time. And I just thought it was really funny that it worked out. And from the camera angle, it spun perfectly on that. That made me so happy when I looked at it later. Because this was all one take, which is pretty hard to do.
Where it's good to learn that. I highly recommend learning this way first, where you grab the top corner of the card. And once you get this down pretty good, you might want to consider also teaching yourself the other method, which is grabbing toward the center of the card.
So grabbing toward the center of the card, if you're ever like pitching cards with your friends, that's the one where you can project a card all the way across a room. You could, if you're trying to compete, get it into a shoebox far away. I don't know how many people play drinking games that watch this, but I've definitely played dealer drinking games at night where you set up a shoebox or something and you see every time you get it in far away, everyone else has to drink, stuff like that. It's kind of like a fun little thing, right? Like people in the poker dealers have interesting lives at the end of the day. Casino dealers do too, because you're on a different schedule. It's a night schedule a lot of the time. Swing shift is much more common. And it's a different type of person that's there. They still go out after work a lot of the times. I've certainly gone out with people after work. There's a camaraderie and stuff. I don't drink a ton, but definitely it was interesting to like have games related to pitching cards and stuff like that. But yeah, that is the pitch where you grab the center of the card, where the card's going to go a lot further.
This one's a little bit slower. That's why you don't learn it the first time. When you grab the center of the card, it's slower. The top corner is quicker. Top corner is very quick. And look how little motion there is. There's almost no motion with my wrist, and there's certainly no motion with my arms.
Now, again, compare that to pitching like this, where you're moving your wrist and all this stuff over and over again. It'd be this way, but that motion will absolutely destroy your body over time because of how, like, you're dealing 15 hands every 30 minutes, in most cases, okay? If you calculate that out, that's something like 30 hands an hour, and let's say that you take 4 breaks for 30 minutes. So 30 times 6 is 180 hands an hour, maybe 200 if you're especially fast, okay? Each hand is 9 cards. Like, you're doing that 1,000 times a day. If you have all that motion, you're gonna destroy yourself. It's your shoulder that gets affected. It's your wrist that gets affected. It's hard to do that as a career 5 days a week. You might be fine for 2-3 months. Eventually, it's gonna get you. And like the types of injuries you get are not easy injuries to deal with because they're strain injuries, like carpal tunnel or a cyst or something like that. You need to rest in order to get better, and then when you start again, it gets worse again. Like, you gotta learn to pitch properly. It's so important. Mechanically, that is the thing that can actually injure you, is learning a pitch that's not done properly. Greg says, not to mention it looks unprofessional, at least to me. Oh, it looks really unprofessional. All that extra motion, right? As a poker player, you want finesse. You want to feel like it's an elite place that you're at, where you're playing this elite game for money. And so if a dealer can do stuff and make it look easy, it feels much better to be a part of that in addition. But I mean, if I'm being honest, that aside, it's your body as you learn to do this. You want to learn to do it in a way that's not going to put strain on you. I mean, I've said to dealers before that learned how to pitch that other way, that just they can't get themselves to undo that. I've told them, be a supervisor, or be a dual rate where they supervise sometimes and deal sometimes, so that they're getting rid of a lot of their reps, but they're still working. Chris said, I'd like to hear what you really got you so passionate about poker sometime, if you don't mind. Do you still deal it all now professionally? Seems like you do well dealing private high-stakes games. So I appreciate that. Let me see. How did I get passionate about poker first? I mean, I was a poker player first. I started playing online poker in 2003. That was after sort of playing with friends and being familiar with it because my dad introduced me to it as a kid. I like the math of it. I like the game itself. I like it's like poker's a satisfying game in a lot of ways, right? Because you're winning money, but also you're competing against other people. And then for me, working in it became this learning thing. One of my favorite things in the world is learning. I've been an entrepreneur now for 4 years or so. I don't currently work dealing any private games, dealing anything like that. I've sort of shifted my attention to True Poker Dealer, and now recently live poker coaching, which I just released the first 6 videos out of 500 on YouTube. And that's sort of where my attention has gone to. But I guess the thing that got me passionate about poker was, at the time for me, my dream in life was to have a family, honestly. And so the game of poker was really interesting. I like math. I like psychology. So poker is math, psychology, and money. And working in the industry and playing in the industry, like working in the industry, there's so much to learn. People think dealing is easy. It's not. People think, for me, I dealt blackjack, table games, like I floored table games. And then I sort of settled into poker and sort of started working my way up. And it's just like more to learn, more to learn, more to learn. You start out learning the mechanics and the stuff that I teach you guys with this audience. But I also have conversations on the highest level about logic problems that we call poker floor calls, right? Every single supervisor call in poker is a logic problem that requires a lot of experience in order to be able to come up with the right answer. And there's moral implications and all this stuff. So at the end of the day, it's like, I like pressure situations. I come from an athletic background as well. I like competition, and this, like, I wanted to have a family, and working in poker and casinos was something where I could go in, do my job, enjoy it. Like, I never dreaded it for a day. I really enjoyed going in, like being a part of the game, facilitating it, getting tipped for it. Or when I was a supervisor, because I was a supervisor more than I was a dealer, about 3 years as a dealer, plus it was a little more than 3 years, and 7+ as a supervisor shift manager. Like going in and helping the employees in a game that I like, get what they need and all that stuff. It was just really satisfying to me. And then, yeah, there's always more to learn. It's always changing. One of my favorite quotes from the director of poker at a room that they hired me, and I worked there a long time. He said, you can never learn everything in casinos. There's always more to learn. And you should always be mindful that you can learn something from anybody, especially in casinos, because there's just so much to it. And to me, this is it. This is it's a game that can pay the bills. And also, most people that get into dealing in casinos, especially poker, they go from something that pays them like $15 an hour up to all of a sudden making $25 an hour their first day. Like pretty quick off the bat, between your base pay and tips, you're at about $25 an hour. And then as you perfect it, you continue to go up as high as 40+. So there's so much to it. Like, I have this beautiful association with the game of poker because it's the first job I ever got where I had money in abundance compared to what I was used to. For me, I did go from making, I think it was 15 an hour, up to like 25 to 35. Chris said, I actually have noticeable carpal tunnel arthritis from doing other work over time, so I definitely have to be careful with technique. Yeah, absolutely. Don't try to rush yourself, too. Like, just learn how to do it smoothly. And keep in mind, as little motion as possible gives you the best result. So if you practice the thing with less motion, especially in advance before you go to the school, And you keep it here, and you sort of practice, like you just practice pitching out cards without a lot of effort. Like just try to get your hand to relax, right? Just keep it angled up with the wrist, and just practice pitching the cards out. You don't have to go that fast in order to be a dealer. It's not a big deal. Just keep on pitching, right? Keep on pitching. Oh, missed it. Just push it out. People feel like you have to go so fast. It's just not true. Just keep on pitching. And if you keep it in and you... But, you know, and I made the comment earlier, it's 9 different players you have to deal, but it's 2 cards each and 4 in Omaha. There's a lot of pitching to do. So just keep it as relaxed as possible. Keeping those muscles relaxed makes a huge difference. But yeah, that's sort of me and my passion for poker. And then also, like, because I love helping people so much, creating this, like, once I became a supervisor, then all the stuff that I learned I was able to teach to the dealers that were coming after me. I really enjoyed when I was a shift manager, helping set up procedure in the room in order to make things run more smoothly. As much as I say there is to learn, there's also a lot to improve in casinos still. And that's a thing that I enjoy. That's why, you know, I decided to go to the TDA Summit and all that as well. And for me, in my unique situation with True Poker Dealer with the YouTube channel, like, I walk into poker rooms and people recognize me too. And it's a cool thing because it's fun getting recognized in something that you enjoy, right? It's not fun getting recognized in something you don't enjoy. So, but I mean, if I'm being honest too, like, the enjoyment of the industry, the thing I always loved about it is I never take it home. So I go in, work, get decent money, go home. The rest of the day is my own. One dealer that I talked to, you know, I was asking him what his passions were in life, and he's like, listen, I love this because it's a job that I can go in, and this is how he phrased it, and there's truth to this. He said, I can go in, I can shut my brain off for 8 hours a day, and then I go home, and all of the time for me at home is mine. I don't have any stress. I just go home and do anything I want to do in the other time outside the 40 hours a week. They were a full-time dealer, now they're a supervisor. And there's a lot of truth to that, you know. It's relatively stress-free, and it can be a good lifestyle. So, yeah, I feel like I'm unintentionally sounding a little promoty for casinos. Like, some people don't like it too, for what it's worth. My personality has something to do with me liking it. I like games. I like math and psychology. But I also don't mind people who are sort of downers. Like, there's a lot of poker players that are downers, and I know how to kind of work with that, where it's like, yeah, just to have fun anyway. Like, I can have fun in anything I do, and that's one reason why this is fun, because I don't get brought down by all this the people that try to bring other people down. Chris said, sounds like a great backstory. I can see we have a lot in common as far as personality and approach on life. Yeah, I'm noticing that too, and I think you're going to do great in the industry. And yeah, just be careful of your carpal tunnel from the other stuff that you've done in the past, because it can affect you for sure. Greg says, I enjoy games and math as well. You kind of have to when you get a BS in accounting. Yes, absolutely. And it's interesting how a lot of people go to college, and you know, I have my own feelings about my own education in college. Like, I have a undergrad degree in electrical engineering that I used it indirectly at best, right? I never actually used it to get an engineering job. And something I really liked about the casino industry was I could go in there and make good money and enjoy my job. I dreaded getting a job as an engineer because I thought I wouldn't like it. And so for me, poker was something that I enjoyed the entire time I was in it. I will say this though, dealing full time every single week can be a bit of a grind after a while. Like, if you ever become a full-time poker dealer, try to get a job somewhere that you get some vacation. And plan your life around it, because during vacation time you only get minimum wage, so you're not getting the same money that you're used to. One of the biggest problems with being a poker dealer, honestly, people get used to spending everything that they make, and then they can't take vacation because their entire life depends on that income. So I would always say, as a poker dealer, especially because your PTO is not going to pay you as much as normal, learn how to manage your money. Really important. And especially, don't gamble money that you can't afford to lose. I do see that a lot. I see a lot of people that are poker dealers or table games dealers especially, they become very familiar with how to gamble, and so they do it, and they end up in tough shape sometimes, which is sad to be around. I have friends that have done that. You know, we've talked to them and all this. I've done a couple interventions with groups of mine for friends. This was when I first started, and this was table games a little bit more like this. But, you know, people learn how to play poker. They try to do it, you know. And when they're used to getting checks that are a lot bigger than what they've got in the past, they feel like they have extra money to go and try it. Chad said, must be nice to have poker rooms open where you are. They're still closed in Pennsylvania. It's funny you say that. I still haven't gone to play poker just because I don't know, I'm still a little bit scared. But I think I'm working my way back up to it as the cases go down in Florida where I'm at. Chris says, agree 100%, amazes me. People will continue to burn all that money on tuition only to work in a field they typically don't even enjoy. Seems brutal, honestly. Then Greg says, money management is definitely where a business degree comes in handy. Yeah, well, that makes sense for a business degree, accounting. Listen, Chris, I don't even get me started on the college trap, right? Like, college is a business and an education system. I'm not gonna say it's like only negative, but there's a lot of people that go to college and they do really well. There's a lot of people that are there because they feel like they're supposed to be there, and they don't know what they're doing. And the thing that they're told, this was what my experience was, you'll figure it out as you go, and then by the time you're done, you're just like, ugh, like I just spent all that money, and now I have a degree that I'm not going to use, and why was I there again? Like, to become an adult, I guess? I don't know. I mean, the thing I would say to somebody that doesn't know why they're in school is, for $49.99 a month, you can learn how to deal poker using a 35-hour course, and then you can get $25 to $40 plus an hour for life as long as you can continue to do that job. Did you really need to go to college for that? I mean, that's my feeling on it. That being said, our society really does value a college degree, so there's a lot of value in that too. But if you're doing it for that $50K a year job, you could take my course and get that, you know. I would honestly recommend that anybody's in college learns how to deal, because it's one of those skills that you keep in your back pocket for life, and it's bailed me out multiple times in my life when I've needed it. It can bail anybody out. Let's see. Greg says, neither Connecticut nor Massachusetts has poker at the moment, unfortunately. Oh, I didn't know that. Con says, sup, Mark? Finally get to catch you live. Hey, what's going on? So you've been dealing about 8 weeks now, right? Tell us how it's going for you. Curious. And while we're doing that, and I read through the rest of the comments there, I'm going to jump back to this video and keep going on it a bit. Con said $48 an hour last night. I love it so far. Isn't that crazy? Like, that's how it goes. Some nights you can absolutely kill it. And I don't know if maybe he only worked 4 hours and then he went home, or maybe he was there for a lot longer and it averaged out. But like, you can tip out $500 in a day in a 6-hour shift. I've seen it before. You can tip out, it can also be a lot lower than that, of course, but it certainly happens. Full 8. Nice. Very nice. Chris says, if what you really are passionate about requires you to go to university or you have scholarship, then go for it. Otherwise, I'd explore travel entrepreneurship. I mean, that's my mentality too, but here's the thing. I find that a lot of people are not any more ready for being an entrepreneur than they are for being in college. And so if you're looking at trying to like listen to other people's advice and you don't have an opinion of your own, and you're like looking at, do I want to go to college, or do I want to explore, travel the world a little bit? I don't know, like trying to be an entrepreneur, if it's someone else's decision for you, also would be a nightmare disaster. You got to sort of have that motivation and drive. Otherwise, you're throwing yourself to the wolves in terms of life. So I would say create a stable plan for yourself if you're going to do something other than college, and make sure that you're never going to run out of money, etc. And that's another thing. Like, dealing in casinos can really help with that too. One thing that a person can do if they wanted to be a dealer and sort of get the best of both worlds out of high school, you could learn how to be a poker dealer, and you could deal the tour, the WPT circuit rather, and then you get to travel to all these different places, and you get your bills paid too, and you get some pocket cash as well. Then you've started to sort of experience a lot of stuff around, but you can also get stuck in it because then you just have one specific skill set. Chris says, mind if I ask where you're located? California. Yep. Cool. So I'm going to jump back to this. Wait. Oh, here we are. Yeah.
Alright, so now we've gone through the mechanics.
Oh, I see.
There's almost no motion with my wrist, and there's certainly no motion with my arms. Alright, so now we've gone through the mechanics. It's going to take some time to learn. Don't worry about that side. Put the time in. Go back and watch the video again to make sure that you're doing it correctly, and check up to see if you're really doing what it is that you should be doing. Now, one more thing. I didn't show this, but if you want to pitch over there, instead of just straight ahead, you really want to swivel chair is a good thing. You really want to turn your body in the chair and pitch in that direction. If you pitch in front of you, pitch just in one direction all the time, turning your chair. You can't do that 100%. If you really need to pitch over here, sometimes you're going to have to go like this, but we'll teach that stuff in the situations. Chair. Always try and keep yourself as centered as possible. Now,
yeah, using the chair to help angle you is like incredibly valuable, because otherwise it's more shoulder stuff. But yeah, man, there's this is a delicate video. It really is, because it's just so easy. Like if someone doesn't take this seriously and learn the techniques that I teach in this one, they can injure themselves. If they do take it seriously and learn the techniques the way that I'm teaching it, you should be all set. And it feels good to have created a video that I can say that about, for the record. Chris says, yeah, I agree. I don't mind per someone else's advice. I just mean, if that is what you want to do, you should definitely explore it, as opposed to feeling pressured for higher education. Absolutely true. I mean, you can go to college anytime as well. Like, you don't need to go to college right out of school. Like, if you're feeling, I don't know what I want, explore the world a little bit and figure out what you want, right? I can tell you this. I would absolutely, if I could do it all again, I would absolutely have started becoming an entrepreneur right away. My last 4 years, I have learned, so I've raised over $600K for a tech startup. It's still sitting there, but I ran out of money with it. I've created 2 businesses, 3 businesses I was a part of over the last 4 years. One nonprofit, and I've learned so many different things. I've definitely learned more in my last 4 years of sort of going for it than I had in my previous 20 years combined. And I do feel like I learned a lot in those 20 years, but it's not the same. Like, when you're trying to figure it out for yourself, you just absolutely have to learn all the different pieces in order to be able to do it. And the only thing that I'll say that's really tough if you don't go to college, your college is an automatic network of people that can help you succeed. A lot of the people that you go to college with are going to succeed on high levels. And so if you can be authentic while you're there, you can create some friendships that, I mean, at the end of the day, they might be worth as much as or more as trying to go and be an entrepreneur. But if you can create those friendships and try to be an entrepreneur, there's a ton of value there instead. But I find that it's hard for people to go off on their own and really know how to create genuine connections with people. Because, I mean, we're ultimately, we're not really taught that in school. And I believe we should be, but, I sort of get it. Chris says, swivel chair is amazing, for the record. Got one for my full setup at the house to practice with. Oh, yeah, so much better. Greg says, I noticed your chair there today. What kind of chair is that? This chair it says race car underneath it. I'm not allowed to show the logo technically. I've never been told that, but it's just what I read. I'm not supposed to do that. So if you go on Amazon and you search, I bought this off of Amazon. If you search this race car chair or something like that, you'll find a bunch of these. This one was in the 120 range. It's nice. It's nice. I have to put a cushion down because if I sit in this for too long, it's a little bit uncomfortable, but as long as I have a pillow on it or something like that, it's great. Let's see. Colin said, Marc really gave me the confidence to deal. I don't know where I'd be if I never came across all his videos. I say this a lot, I'll say it again. I super appreciate these comments. That's really cool of you to say. Chris said, how long have you been dealing, Con? Almost 2 months. Yep. Cool. Good on you doing so well early on. Yeah. I appreciate you, Chris. 48 an hour. That's a nice ceiling for me to reach for already. Yeah, you can hit it pretty early too. And I'm sure Khan would talk about there's some days where he didn't make anywhere near that, of course, but you can get there. Chad says I'm a huge Tampa Bay Lightning fan. Gold bolts. That's funny. One of my producers for live poker coaching is an enormous Tampa Bay Lightning fan as well. So maybe someday you can come in onto live poker coaching and make a comment on one of those videos, and I'll make sure that Tammy is her name. I'll make sure that she supports the Tampa Bay Lightning comment. Greg said, what if poker supplied gaming chairs like that for the dealers and the players? I mean, think about it. We're sitting there all the time. Might as well be comfy, right? In poker rooms, the chairs that they have are way more comfortable than this chair. Like, I've worked in some poker rooms where the dealer chairs are the fanciest chairs I've ever seen in my life. They're meant to be used 24/7. They're like really cushy padded leather. Like, if I could get one of those at my house, I would absolutely get that. I love good dealer chairs from casinos, but just like with a lot of things, they only sell them directly to casinos. But, maybe that's one of the things I could try to get the vendor connection with the True Poker Dealer version of it. I assume that people would probably buy them, right? Just depends on who it is that's looking at it. But I mean, they would be like $400. I know at one room we had $600 dealer chairs, but like casinos are willing to spend too. Khan says, yep, some days it's the luck of the string. Yeah, that's another thing too. For anyone that's been a dealer, or that hasn't been a dealer, I should say, the string is the terminology used to talk about the order that you deal tables in. So, if you have tables 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, you're not going to usually deal 1, then 2, then 3, then break, then 4, then 5, then 6, then break, then 7, then 8, then 9, then 10, then break. It's not usually going to be that. There's some rooms that do that to try to create a transparent rotation, but a lot of the time the room is going to send you first to table 2, because that's where you started the rotation. Then the next one after 2, everybody that goes to 2, they go to 6 next. Then everybody that goes to 6, they go to 9 next. And it's like stuff like that. Now, each of these tables is different games, and the tippers are different, and the game they play is different. And as a room, you try to balance that out to make it fair. And yeah, it is the luck of the string a lot of the time. And it's supposed to be completely fair. If I'm being honest, I feel like I was one of the only supervisors in the entire poker industry that was actually fair first, and like I did not pick favorites, and it used to kind of like surprise people that I wouldn't do that. There's a lot of supervisors that if they like you, they send you to a better string, and I think the industry as a whole has gotten a little bit better about that. But at the same time, so I'm exaggerating a little bit when I say I'm the only one in the industry that did it that way. Like, the goal is for everybody to do it that way. And a lot of the supervisors have gotten systems that are pretty good, but a good supervisor can also sort of manipulate that system. And my point here, become friendly with the supervisors. Like, do things for them, help them out, make their lives easier. Because then when there's a choice between you and someone else for something good, if there's no real system to determine who they're going to choose, that way they choose you for the good thing. It's just a little tip. You can make some extra money off of that. And it's good for you and it's good for them because you're helping them in their job. How do you help a supervisor? When you go to break, ask them if there's anything they need. If they need a bottle of water, something like that. I mean, there's little things you can do. I'm only saying do this if it feels good to do it for you, but there's some payoff there for sure. Greg says, once I have a home of my own, I'm going to build a True Poker Dealer poker room where I'll host a local home game. That's awesome. Send me some pictures. Let's see. Chad says, have you heard of Matt Postle? It's interesting how he cheated at poker. Yeah, I back before Doug Poke stopped making new videos for poker, he was posting some stuff, and that's sort of how I was seeing what Matt Postle was doing. And also, it was like a hot topic. The poker pro that I work with for live poker coaching was talking about it. Mike Lockey, he and I were going back and forth about like the dynamic, because there's a lot of people that want to start live stream poker games, and it's scary to do it with RFID if it's possible for somebody to cheat like that. And then in his case, he got off cheating with no consequence, which is like really frustrating to hear, because it's one thing, evidence for a jury, like a jury would have to spend an entire lifetime learning poker in order for them to understand what it is that's actually being determined there. And I'm not even saying that it went to trial. I don't actually know that part. I just know that the judge said that he wasn't in trouble at one point, and maybe he went back or something. I haven't heard anything about it in months, but all of the evidence was incredibly stacked against him, and he's ruined his reputation for life as a result of that. I mean, it's just money. Like, that's how I feel. But yeah, he allegedly cheated at poker. There's a lot of evidence that shows that he did. If you are familiar with poker, it seems clearer to you that he did it, but it is still something that he's not been convicted of, from my knowledge. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but it's a pretty crazy circumstance and case study, to say the least. Rengar BGVN says, my boss said a dealer must do all step from wash till pitching cards done for 9 seed in 25 seconds. Is that true? Let me see. From the mini wash to all the cards are pitched in 9 seconds, or for 9 seats in 25 seconds. Is that true? The answer is a room that has their pick of the litter for dealers is able to say something like that a lot of the time. 25 seconds is fast. I would say it's totally doable though. So like if you put the time and the work in and you practice, 25 seconds is very reasonable. And all you got to do if you're going to try to complete this challenge is, here, I'll sort of show you what it looks like. And you guys can get a sense of the timing of it if you want. I don't know if you can see everything here, but... and then some of the rooms will even take it to the extent that they expect you to get the cards to land in the right spot and all this stuff. I don't think you guys can see every seat here, but... so you guys can time it and just get a sense. So when they say 25 seconds, first of all, some of them include shuffle machines in there. So all you're doing is you're just taking this out and then cutting it. But you're saying with the wash, so we're going to say, I mean, I'm not going to time this right now. If you want to time it, you can. We're going to say like a mini wash, and then you pick all the cards up, and you can tell already this is going to probably take a little bit more than 25 seconds. I've timed this for myself, and I think the quickest I've gotten for Omaha is about 26 seconds, and that's pretty fast. But if you pitch this out, let's say the button's here, like it should be pretty quick. That one there, you have to know how to correct that in the time. And by the way, this is a terrible thing to teach new dealers because speed comes with time. So I don't know how quick that was, but if you can do it that fast or even a little slower than that, you're absolutely fine in most poker rooms. However, there's no wrong way to run a poker room as long as there's people that play poker there and the dealers are there. So if a poker room says you're supposed to do it in 25 seconds, then you got to do it in 25 seconds. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't expect the dealer to be able to do that. I would expect the dealer to be able to do it about as fast as I just did. So it's like, shuffle, shuffle. And there's dealers that can shuffle super fast. My shuffle is like reasonably fast. And pitch. It also is nice to like be practicing all the time. I barely ever deal for what it's worth. Flipped an ace. Usually there's not going to be a mouse on the table. But that can happen. And you know what? If you flip a card, don't make a big deal about it. Like when a dealer says, "Oh, I'm sorry," it's the worst thing they can do. Calling attention to a mistake. People make mistakes. There's no expectation. My point in showing you that was to try to take the pressure off most people that are learning how to deal. You don't need to be any faster than that. However, if I were dealing in a poker room, within about an hour, my speed goes way up. So like I've noticed it because the last job that I got at the Hard Rock in Hollywood, after about 2 tables, like I increased my speed like 25% with everything. It all kind of comes back if you haven't done it in a while. Let's see. Chris said, build rapport, show up for work every day and be the best dealer you can be. Sounds like a good blueprint for favorable string. Professionalism works wonders. It does. Also, it's better to be memorable in a good way as a dealer. There's a lot of dealers that go in and they do exactly what you just said. Well, you said build rapport, so I take it back. You're totally on point. But showing up for work and being the best dealer you can be, you can go into the background. You said, flip it on purpose. No, that was an accident. I have never dealt with a mouse on the table before, and I paid the consequences. But yeah, being professional and sort of being aware of the needs of your supervisors goes a long way. And being somebody that is not stressful. You don't want to be a stressful person to the people that you work for. In the lesson, Chris, I have a 4.5 hour video where I have a guest who is someone that I've worked with in the past, and they are currently a supervisor / shift manager at a Seminole property. And in that 4.5 hour video, we talk about the relationship between dealers and supervisors a lot. And it's like, it's really valuable stuff to learn because it can make a huge difference. And it's sort of like the stuff that I touched on when I was saying, create that relationship with them. But yeah, get to that and sort of like treat it like a podcast. Like I would put that video on 1.5 to 2x speed, watch it on a computer while I'm doing other stuff, because mostly that's just listening for that lesson, but it's really important. Chad says, what is your dream place you would want to deal if I was a dealer? Mine would be dealing at the final table of the WSOP or WPT. I would enjoy dealing to WSOP one day. I've thought about it. But then every time I think about dealing the WSOP, I think, you know what? I want to play the WSOP main event. I've played a $1,000 bracelet event, and I feel like, I would like to play it first and then maybe deal it after. And then when I think about dealing it, I'd like to floor it because, if I'm being honest, I really enjoyed being a supervisor and shift manager as well. I enjoyed the freedom to... I'm going to say this stuff is sort of funny, but... when you're a dealer, we don't talk about this stuff. You make really good money, so it's worth it. But if a player farts, you have to smell it, right? Like, as a supervisor, when that happens, you just walk away. And, maybe you spray the area of the table if you really care. But, yeah, it's... I liked supervising, but in terms of, like... I would enjoy dealing the circuit. I would enjoy dealing the WSOP. I would enjoy dealing... I did enjoy dealing at the Hard Rock in Hollywood. Dealing their high limit games was really fascinating. Like, so much money was flying around. I would enjoy dealing at Aria. But I think at this point, the thing I really enjoy the most is training and... I think about, I've got True Poker Dealer here. I think about transitioning it into supervisor training because there's no universal supervisor training for poker supervisors. And as a result, a lot of the industry is all over the place in terms of what they expect and how they handle floor calls and stuff. And I'm sort of thinking about like how to approach that problem. I'm not sure exactly what my solution is, but it's on my list of to-dos for sure. Yeah, Greg says, I'd love to play the main event too. Khan says, I see the passion. Well, thank you. I certainly have it. Yeah, I mean, the WSOP, I have Jerry is the person who I super value his friendship and his help with this project. The original True Poker Dealer videos were done at his house, and he was a photographer in his original career, and in his retirement he decided to be a poker dealer, and I hired him at the original room that I worked at with him. We became friends. At one point, about 4 years into his dealing, after we'd already done True Poker Dealer, he went and auditioned at the World Series and he was able to pass it. And so part of me feels like I did get that experience because like one of my best friends went and dealt it, and I got to hear it from his like rookie eyes, rookie at the WSOP, not as a dealer at the time. what it was like. But I mean, I'd spent so much time with him working on True Poker Dealer in the first place. It was just it was really cool to hear all that stuff. I feel like I would totally go back and deal the WSOP with him, especially now that I've learned a lot more in the industry and I learned all the other games that you need for it. So, but the reason I would want to do it is just because I'd be like a fan there, kind of, like there'd be a lot of poker pros that I really enjoy being around and seeing what they're like, and man, I can't wait until COVID's over. I do want to invite everybody for the kind of wrap up questions and comments now. Been at this for a couple hours now, and it is a lot to talk constantly. I got to kind of figure out how to bring on guests to this stuff too. Here, we'll flip one hand here versus one hand here versus one hand here. And let's see who wins. Why not? All right. Who are you guys voting for? Who's going to win here? Ooh, interesting. Flush draw over here. Top pair over here. Pair of fours. Not a lot going on. Pair of deuces. Ooh, now we got top pair and a flush draw over here. They're looking pretty good. And the flush comes through. Two pair over here, but we got a flush in spades. I know I did it now. Taking the winning hand and putting it up in the front of the table is not something to do in a poker room ever. Okay? You only do that when you're on TV. In my case, I was doing it so you guys could see the hand better. Do not take the winning hand and put it up here. Don't take hands that are being shown down and put it up here. That's only if you're on a televised table. Or if your poker room says to do it. Chad says, I'm cheap, I play home games, and I play 1-3 games at the casino. Nothing wrong with that. Greg says, you forgot to kill the dead hands. I did. My intent behind dealing a hand out was not to show proper procedure. I just felt like seeing who would win. That was a poker player in me that felt like doing that. Chris says, nothing wrong with that at Chad. Yeah, totally. So, let's see. I have definitely enjoyed you guys today. And again, shout out to the two people who joined. Chris, thank you for joining the channel. Costadin, thank you for joining the channel as well. You guys are awesome. I definitely help it. Greg says you want to try another hand. I feel good about one per session, so we can do another one the next time. Greg, happy to see you then and do that there whenever you show up in the live stream. I am sort of thinking about adding live stream times as well. I've really appreciated the response that I've gotten from people for these live streams, and I sort of want to get back and put some more of my time in. So I'm considering doing it at some like odd hours. I know a lot of people are in a lot of different places, and this time on Tuesday doesn't work for everybody. So I'm considering that too. So I don't know when that is yet. I might just pop up at some point. We'll see. But anyway, good to know because I see some dealers do that. Yeah, Con, don't do that. Unless your room tells you to do it, don't slide the cards up front. Greg says, I appreciate you coming on. Happy to be here, man. It's good to spend time with you guys, honestly. Con says, see you, Marc. True Poker Dealer is going to be big. I already know. I appreciate that so much, man. When I think about, I started this and then disappeared for 7 years. I should have been working on this the whole time. It would have been so great. But at the time, I just wanted it to exist, and I just wanted it to be a resource. Now I want it to be like a big thing, which I'm happy about. So thank you all, and take care, and see you next Tuesday. And I didn't mean it like that for those that know that saying, but so I did get a question right before I left. Soren says, any tips on PLO pot calculations? The live stream last week, I do a very quick demo of that. If you want to jump in and look at last week's live stream, it's only going to be up for another day or two before I move it to the paid live stream section for $5 a month. The real answer to your question for PLO calculations, I do a 2.5 hour video in the bonus mixed games course that you can get by joining my channel. There's a lot to it in order to really do it correctly. But I would say the starting point for you, go into my previous live stream, watch that section. That'll give you the starting point, and then you can decide how to take it from there, because I am sort of going to jump off right now. And I do apologize, I don't remember exactly where it is in that thing, but based on the comments on the side, you should be able to figure out where that is if you just scroll, like, find the comments, because I leave the comments in so you can watch it after the fact. People ask me about PLO is the point, so you can find that there, or you can catch me next Tuesday a little bit earlier than, right as I'm wrapping up, because I don't know if you heard me say it, but I asked for last questions before I'm going to go. So everybody take care, and we'll talk to you next week.